Okay, we'll call the Cloverdale City Council meeting to order at 6:01. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Can we get a roll call, Michael?
Thank you, Mayor. Let the record reflect that all council members are present.
Thank you. We have nothing to report out on closed session. Any conflict of interest from anyone? Seeing none. Any changes or deletions to the agenda, David?
No changes, Mayor.
Thank you. Public comments. Any person wishing to speak on any item not listed on the agenda may do so at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council is not allowed to consider issues or take action on any item not listed on the agenda. 3 minutes are typically allotted to each speaker. I see Mr. Green coming forward.
Are we on?
Yep.
Can you hear me now? Mr. Mayor, City Council members, city staff, and fellow citizens. I want to keep this short tonight, but the story is that on the 4th of July, we had a beautiful event. And like the children's story, if you give a mouse a cookie, you're going to have some resultant things that have happened. Well, the City Council has given the city a flagpole that was naked on the 4th of July. I don't know how that decision was made, but my thoughts are that we've had such a controversy, and it's such a issue that goes back now a couple of years, and it has to do with commemorative flags, and we haven't gotten there yet. And I would ask this iteration of the City Council before December to agendize some discussion about that flagpole, because a naked flagpole on the 4th of July is just wrong, right in the city plaza. I'm ashamed. That's all I'll say.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I can, just real
Please.
quickly give an update. Thank you, Mr. Green, for your comments. I want to note that council has adopted a policy regarding the commemorative flagpole. Council has permitted by resolution to fly on the flagpole are commemorative flags. In addition to the commemorative flags, the council has authorized staff to fly the City of Cloverdale flagpole. The existing flag that we have here at City Hall, which bears the historical emblem for the city, unfortunately was not designed to be flown outdoors. And we are working on getting the historic flag reproduced to enable flying it on the commemorative flagpole as provided for by council. Unfortunately, in trying to obtain an outdoor flag, we needed the logo, and we had to employ the services of a local graphics illustrator to recreate it for us so that we could produce that flag. We're in the process of doing that. So just want to ensure council that we are working on getting a historic flag, or the flag with our historic emblem produced as soon as possible so we can get that up on our commemorative flagpole. But
right.
Other than the city flag, the only authorized flags are those approved by council as commemorative flags.
Thank you, David. Good. Anyone else? Mr. Frankston?
Good evening, Daniel Frankston. I just wanted to thank Mayor Lands for the appointment and the council for the confirmation of me to the Planning Commission. It's appreciated. I also want to bring to the attention the fact that the MTC ABAG just came out with their 2050 plan, and that includes, they're providing for transportation of SMART to Healdsburg, but no further. There is a public comment period. It closes, unfortunately, on the 11th, which is at 5 o'clock on the 11th, which is before your next meeting. And I know I will be writing, and I'm encouraging others to write to make sure they don't forget that Cloverdale is part of Sonoma County, and we want to get on the SMART train as well at some point. I mean, obviously, it's going to be a long time, but I think the more pressure we all put as individuals on those agencies, the faster that'll happen. So I realize it's late for the council to do anything officially, but there's a bunch of you sitting up there that could individually write letters as well, and citizen letters are great, but usually public officials, when they write, has a little bit more force and impact. So I would encourage all of you to participate in that and to encourage the SMART Train and ABAG to include Cloverdale in their plans that go through 2050. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mayor, again, if I can address Mr. Frankton's comment, and I think it's right in alignment with what we are planning to request the mayor's signature. I think it's consistent with our past practice in terms of taking a legislative position in support of bringing the SMART Train to Cloverdale. The critical aspect of getting the necessary funding is including that last segment from Healdsburg to Cloverdale in the MTC's 2050 plan. And we have been coordinating with our legislative representatives at SMART and local staff to draft a letter in support of including Cloverdale in the revised MTC 2050 plan. So I don't think there's no formal action necessary by council because it's consistent with your past legislative practices. And our plan would be to finalize the letter for the mayor's signature, and we'll include a copy on the next council agenda for your review. But otherwise, it's in the works, and we will definitely want to comment on that so that that letter of support is part of the public record.
Who will we going to CC on that? I know this is not an agendized item, but I had suggested Senator McGuire, Senator Woods, Hoffman, everybody and their brother that Cloverdale was left off.
Pursuant to your request, Councilmember Walter, I think it's standard practice to make sure that our legislative representatives at all levels are copied on that type of legislative perspective of the council.
Thank you for that, David. Anyone else with a public comment for items not on the open session agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on. Under communications, we had 2 written correspondence from Mr. Rob Kozlowski. They're in the packet if anyone would like to read them. We'll go to E, proclamations, because we don't have a student liaison at this time. School just came back in. E1, Women's Equality Day. Is there anyone that would like to read it? Seeing none, I will. A proclamation of the City Council of the City of Cloverdale declaring August 26, 2024 Women's Equality Day in Cloverdale. Whereas on August 26, 2024, we mark the 104th anniversary of the enactment of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which secured the right to vote for women. Whereas in 1976, the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors established one of the first commissions on the status of women in the state of California with the purpose of promoting equal rights and opportunities that enhance the quality of life for all women and girls, and addressing issues of discrimination and prejudice that negatively affect women in Sonoma County. Whereas women now constitute nearly 50% of our workforce, the majority of the students in our colleges and graduate schools, and an increasing number of primary sources of income. Whereas in 2023 to 2024, Sonoma County women working full-time earned 86% of what men earned, and those women working in agriculture and service areas earned even less. Whereas even with the gains women have made, work remains to be done in many areas that directly impact equal pay for equal work, including access to quality, affordable childcare, affordable housing, and comprehensive health care for women, including reproductive and mental health care. And whereas the mandate for Women's Equality Day in 2024 is to invest in women and girls to accelerate the progress of our country. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that I, Mayor Lands, and the City Council of the City of Cloverdale do hereby declare August 26, 2024 as Women's Equality Day in Cloverdale, marking the 104th anniversary of the enactment of the 19th Amendment, celebrating the achievements of women and recommitting to gender equality in the city of Cloverdale, including equal pay for equal work, and accelerating the overall progress of women and girls, dated August 28th, 2024, so ordered myself. Anyone with any comments? Okay, so then tonight we have Gina Fortino-Dixon, who's here from the Commission on the Status of Women. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. And thank you again for joining in with the actually 100% of municipalities in Sonoma County who have proclaimed August 26th as Women's Equality Day. My name is Gina Fortino-Dixon. I'm the chair of the Commission on the Status of Women and your District 4 representative. You also have a new District 4 representative who does work here in Cloverdale, Elizabeth Beatty. She wasn't able to be here this evening, but I look forward to introducing her to you at a later date. As you probably know, because you've heard from me multiple times, the Commission's primary function is to shine a light on issues that affect women in Sonoma County and advise local representatives on how their decisions affect women and girls. As you heard in the proclamation, for every dollar paid to a man in a similar job, 86 cents is paid to a woman. How does that math? Let's break that down even further. If we break that down to working head of household moms, they make 71 cents for every dollar. Women of color make 69 cents for every dollar. So in today's equity pay math, 100 equals 86, or 71, or 69. Economic equity is at the heart of women's equality. Financial independence equals freedom. The freedom to choose who to marry, the freedom to choose where to live, the freedom to choose access to high-quality health care and high-quality child care. Financial freedom equals freedom. And pay equity is at the crux of achieving that. So I was trying to it's such a conceptual concept, and without having anything to compare it to, I was having a tough time, like, how am I going to describe the effect of this? So I started thinking, well, what happens if we do that to other things? Like, what can I do that to? Well, not puppies or kittens. That would be. So I grew these plants. Started them on the same day, in the same soil, in the same receptacle, and I started feeding them, because you and I have to pay for our food and water, right? So I started feeding them, and I fed this one $1 worth of food and water per day. Then I fed this one 86 cents worth of food and water per day. Here's the effect. Some of these effects you can't see. This one obviously is taller, more prolific, has lots more offshoots, but it's also able to sustain an invasive species over here. A bug or a spider has taken up home in here. There's a little cobweb right there. This one's able to do more not only for itself, its family, but its community. We can't keep doing this to women. So thank you again for joining in the fight.
Thank you, Gina. Do you mind if we take a photo with you? Everyone in? Yeah. I'll follow you out. I already bruised my shoulder on this thing.
Will you take one on mine too?
I got your plants for the picture. I held your plants for
Oh,
the picture.
thank you. Perfect.
This is a great analogy. That was really smart. Thank you. I know. There's a community and there's, kind of, hang on. Yeah. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Give me the chance. All right. Moving into the consent calendar, all items under the consent calendar will be considered together by one action of the City Council unless any council member or member of the public requests that an item be removed and considered separately. Does anyone like to pull any items? Seeing none, anyone in the public would like to pull an item? Could you step up to the microphone for me, please? I'm sorry, I couldn't.
My name is Lariva Miles. I'm a resident of Cloverdale, and I'd like to have G1 regarding recreational vehicles pulled to
Okay.
discuss a little further.
If you just give me 1 second, we'll finish it, and then we'll open that one up for discussion for you, okay? So then we have G2. Anyone want to make a motion on G2? Thank you. Do you have a second? Second. Perfect. Michael?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Bagby? Councilmember Walter?
Aye.
Councilmember Morgenstern?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wheeler?
Aye.
Mayor Lands?
Aye. Passes 5-0. Thank you. All right, we'll go into G1. G1 is the second reading by title only of an ordinance amending sections of the Cloverdale Municipal Code in order to more clearly define the off-street parking standards for recreational vehicles in residential areas. So David, do we need to explain it, or do we want to have Ms. Miles, I believe? Yes, yeah.
Well, Mayor, maybe just a quick background and then it'd be council discretion
Yeah.
on how you want to move forward with respect to the request from Ms. Miles. The item tonight is second reading of a draft ordinance regarding amendments to the zoning code pertaining to screening of recreational vehicles. This was brought to council. This was brought as originally as a public comment, which council in turn directed staff to engage in a public process to consider modifying the zoning ordinance to reflect the community's desires relative to screening. There were, I think, at least 2 meetings of the Planning Commission, which resulted in a recommendation to council. It came to council. Council held a public hearing. Additional direction was received at that public hearing. Public hearing was continued to your last meeting of August 14th, and at which time council conducted the first reading of the ordinance as it was revised. And so we've now brought it back for a second reading, and that's why it's on consent. So to get to this point, it's been multiple hearings of the Planning Commission. It also did get reviewed by council subcommittee, and now this is really the third time it's been before council, and it's proposed for adoption. Without knowing what the comments are, it's council's discretion if you want our community development director to provide more details on
No.
the proposed amendment.
You're good, David. I appreciate that general overview. Ms. Miles, you want to come up and speak regarding this item?
So once again, my name is Lariva Miles, and I am a resident of Cloverdale. I've lived here for 14 years, and I live pretty close to the center of Cloverdale on a property which is pretty large. And so I had a couple of examples after reading over the ordinance that I wanted to run by you just to see how they might affect certain situations that I'm considering. So when I read over the ordinance, it said that this ordinance would apply to RVs which were in the front of properties, and it didn't talk about any properties which might any RVs which might be toward the back of a property, but it also says that you're only allowed one RV per lot. So that made me think that I should be concerned if I have more than one RV on my property. And so my first example that I'd like you to respond to is, what if I have an RV which is on my property, not in the front yard, can't be seen, but is not in that great a condition, which is one of the stipulations of the ordinance, and it would just be there, it's not on a pad. What would be the city's response under this ordinance to my having that RV there? Or if nothing would affect that, I'd like to know that as well. That's the first one.
Do you want to do both of them right now,
Sure.
Kevin, or do you want to respond? I think we should have you put out all your concerns and then let
Okay.
us respond.
The second one is, what if I have that small RV that is there that I previously mentioned, and then I also have two other RVs of varying sizes that I use for my business when I need to travel, or when guests come to my home and I put them up for the night or something like that in those RVs. How would this ordinance affect my having more than one RV on my property, not in the front of the property, no one can see it, but I just want to make sure that I can continue to have the RVs that I have or might possibly have in the future according to this ordinance? And would I be fined? Would I get a ticket? Will this be allowed if you pass this ordinance? And I could not attend the other two public meetings that you had, and really just did a careful read and just wanted to come out and check with you to see, if you pass this, how will it affect my situation?
Kevin, do you want to respond to that?
Well, the situation would be that one of the stipulations that we added was one per lot. I know that you have a large lot, but that's where we landed after the 4 different hearings regarding this. One of the other points that might affect you as well is that they're not supposed to be occupied when they're stored on the property. So, unfortunately, the way that this is written would affect you. Typically, we do code enforcement on as people complain or we become aware of situations, so we're not actively seeking it out. But I mean, as this is written, as you described, that what you're describing would not meet the parameters of this ordinance.
Okay, so the other stipulations for the RVs, it's not just for the front yard, it's for the whole property.
If you read, it says a maximum of 1 recreational vehicle per residential lot.
Right?
So it's not defined as the front necessarily. It's the entirety of the lot.
Okay. And the latest addition that you made to the ordinance, it seemed like it was really just talking about the front part of the property, and whether or not the RV was habitable. It made it sound as though it was regarding RVs at the front of the property.
Yeah, there was a lot of, kind of what brought this up initially was the fact that they were parked in the front, and the original ordinance had some language about screening, and it became very difficult for people to actually screen, given other provisions in the zoning ordinance, the fence height allowed in the front. So the consensus was that we had this requirement for screening, but it was really impossible for someone to screen it. So we removed that. So I guess what I'm saying is a lot of the discussion did revolve around the front of the house, but the ordinance does apply to the entirety of the lot.
Okay, and what about the condition that it be in good condition?
That was also discussed at the Planning Commission, and we had brought up a lot of examples of RVs throughout town that were not in good condition and were parked in the front, not screened. And I think the Planning Commission was really trying to differentiate between owners that had ones that were clearly in not good shape and didn't, were in poor condition versus ones that were kept up in good condition. So I think it was just it's one more tool added to help us alleviate some of the ones that are in bad shape. That was really the genesis of that.
Councilmember Bagby, have a
Yeah, I
question?
have a question. Kevin, when you brought this to the planning commission, was there any discussion about differentiating between the different residential types? I mean, I thought we were mostly talking about R1, R2, or what we call rural residential or single family. And, would it be worth it to take another look at this and not have this apply to two-family residential and multifamily residential? Which is actually what her property is zoned at, from what I
Mine
understand.
is R13.
Well, it's the zoning map that I'm looking at currently kind of refers to it as we've updated
density.
the language somewhat. So I'm just wondering if, as much as it pains me to send this back again, I'm just wondering if we should maybe look at it a little bit more closely with the larger lots in Cloverdale, more considered, because this was an issue in traditional suburban single-family home, kind of more traditional subdivision developments, and it was less of an issue in some of the more rural residential and multifamily residential areas. So maybe this would warrant just another look and bringing it back, or considering it for perhaps just R1 and R2.
Well, and one more thing on this, as I'm not discounting anything, but when you have an RV in the back that is inoperable and someone's living in it, is now considered an ADU, I believe, and doesn't match the rules. So we're not allowed to have that.
It wouldn't qualify as an ADU, but under our, even under our existing ordinance, it couldn't be allowed to be lived in on a regular basis. The ordinance adds four things, B1, 2, 3, and 4. The first one is rules about parking on hardscape in the driveway, and that applies specifically within the front yard. The second one talks about you can't use it for habitation, that it needs to be in good condition pursuant to our maintenance standards. Our maintenance standards in general refer to conditions that are visible from the right-of-way. So that one, in general, would not apply to things in the backyard that aren't visible from the right-of-way. The last two, perpendicular to the front yard and a maximum of 1, are, there's nothing that limits them to just the front yard. So that would apply to the whole lot. One, as Kevin said, 1 for the entire lot, and it needs to be perpendicular, whether it's parked in the front or the back, as the ordinance is currently drafted.
Councilmember Walter.
Oh, thank you. I think my question was answered. Lariva, I just wanted to ask you if the RVs in the back are being occupied, and apparently they are. So that was my major question.
No, they're not occupied, except if I had a guest who came and stayed with me in my home, and maybe they stayed there overnight. It's just be like,
I thought I heard you say that one of them was an ADU, so.
no.
I'm afraid that some of our intent, this is what I thought was going to maybe kind of thing that was going to come out in the wash. I mean, our intent on this were issues with parking and RVs blocking, more traditional subdivision developments, and that is not the case here. So I'm wondering if we might have missed the mark a little bit on some of our more legacy lot sizes, particularly extremely large lot sizes under multifamily and rural residential. So I'm wondering if we maybe want to take another swipe at this so that we're making sure it's applying to the neighborhoods that are definitely single family, where this is an issue and doesn't have unintended consequences that we haven't really thought of until now. So just wondering if we could maybe bring this back and have another look at it so that we make sure it applies to the problem we're actually trying to solve.
Is there any way that we could approve it the way it's written by adding exceptions within the document?
So
With
we,
a special exception and inspection by city employees to make sure that that they are actually in the back and they're not visible to the front?
So we, could not approve that way tonight because it's not how it's written, and this is the second reading, so we'd have to reintroduce it. I mean, from the discussion, I assume, for example, even in the large neighborhood, in the suburban or the non-traditional, you'd still say if it's parked in the front yard, we want it perpendicular, and unless it sounds what might change is the very last number 3 and 4 that recreation vehicles must be parked perpendicular to the front of the home should only apply if they're in the front yard, and then a maximum of 1 per lot would only apply potentially in R1 and R2. I don't know if that's what.
That's kind of what I'm getting at, is that I think that what we're trying to get at are some rules for single-family and two-family residential, and we need to kind of relook at how they might impact rural and multifamily, and perhaps we would exempt those on some of the conditions. But yeah, this is not something you want to do from the dais. This needs to be gone over again by planning staff, making sure that we've dotted the i's, crossed the t's, and more than likely bring back a recommendation that's a little bit more finely tuned toward what we were trying to accomplish.
Mayor, members of council, just should you want to entertain an amendment tonight, I think just again the context in which this zoning amendment was brought forward was concerns about vehicles parked in the front and the impact on the viewscape from adjoining properties. I don't think it was necessarily contemplated that where an RV is screened or otherwise located in the backyard where there might be minimal visual impacts, kind of a simple amendment might be a maximum of, to the section 4 that our city attorney referred to, is a maximum of 1 recreational vehicle per residential lot is allowed in the front yard. So that would provide some clarity to that, and not necessarily bring into this policy change additional restrictions regarding the total number of RVs that are permitted on a particular property. So anyways, just something, food for thought. As the city attorney opined, it would be necessary to reintroduce the ordinance, but it may be necessary to do so if you want to make that. It would be necessary to do so if you want to make that change, and it may be a good change because there are other RVs or vehicles that residents we've found residents have or utilize, and so this might clarify, might be an important clarification to make. But that's at the council's discretion.
Thank you, David. On this, I agree with Councilmember Bagby on this. I think there was a lot of work that got put into this, and I don't think the intention where we were at was for the parking R1, R2, and I think, honestly, my suggestion would be send it back to planning and start this and add some more. There's a lot that we're going to have to dive into on this. And I think that the amount on per property and whether they can be seen and all of that, I think warrants another conversation before we go ahead and approve it. So that would be my suggestion.
I think that my experience on the Planning Commission and 8 years on council has really shown me is that, there's just, when you're talking about planning and requirements, when you're talking about subdivisions that were built in the 80s and 90s versus, the neighborhood in this part of town, which is 150 years old, the lot sizes are different. The footprint of the homes on the lots are different. It's just, it's very difficult to come up with a policy that actually treats those different property types fairly. So I think we are nearly there, and we just need to take another look at it with some of those legacy properties in mind. And I am confident we'll get it right the next time. So I'd like to see this come back with these suggestions.
I'm okay with going along with Councilmember Bagby's suggestion of bringing it back to the Planning Commission. I guess the only problem that I have is all of a sudden are we going to have, I think there has to be a lot size, because all of a sudden I'd hate to see 6 motorhomes in the backyard, infringing on everybody else's privacy, their surrounding neighbors. So I think there needs to be a safeguard in the lot size has to dictate how many can be allowed on that property.
Would the zoning come into that at all in terms of how the property is zoned?
Zoning and lot size would come into play. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we could have it by lot size, we could figure that out some way, a different number per lot. We could also just say you need a setback, your RV needs a certain setback. So if you have a small lot, and you're in the backyard, you're not going to be able to fit it, or you're only going to be able to fit one and handle it that way, and not. Then
'Cause it
your
really
RV
is
is
a-
also not right up against someone else's backyard. as
It
sort
really
of
is a handful of properties. I think that if we were talking about a myriad of properties, we could say, oh, we're going to do the math and we're going to figure out what the lot size is in relation to how many. But I think that in this case, just because it's a handful, the setback method is probably going to get us where we want to get where we want to get to in the just simplest manner. Because, again, I don't think this needs a lot of work, but it's always those handful of legacy, older properties, older homes that have special conditions, and it's very easy to do this if all of our homes and our subdivisions were exactly the same. But that's just not what we have in Cloverdale. We have a real mixture of newer subdivisions and older properties with varying lot sizes that actually in some cases would not meet the setback requirements that we have now. In other cases have a little tiny house on a huge lot. So let's just, let's make sure that we're being fair. We're trying to achieve the goal that we're trying to achieve, which is, the problems with parking in the newer subdivisions and in very, very large RVs. That's what we're really trying to address here.
Okay.
So I think one more time around, and we'll get it right the next time.
Lariva, how big is your lot? 2.5, 3 acres?
No, it's about an acre.
Oh, an acre, okay. Yeah. Thank you.
So Kevin, a good direction, and we can discuss more if needed, anything else, but
Mayor, just because this is a second reading, could we just get a motion to table this item and then clarify if you want this revision to go back to the planning commission or just come back to the city council?
I'd move that we table the item and that we make, that staff make take the information, make the recommendations, and bring it back to council.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
okay. Is there anyone else would like to make any comments? Are we good with that? Okay.
I think even if an RV's in the backyard, it should be in semi-decent condition, no matter what, because I'm just afraid that people could interpret this wrong. Somebody could end up renting and living in a not up-to-code RV, and I just think it's a way of protecting renters and protecting the city, because why should something that, if it's really falling apart, be left in somebody's backyard?
And I think that we should look into the ADU style when it's not an RV anymore, because it's inoperable, it becomes a residence per vehicle code. So I would check into that and use some of that language if possible. But any other comments? We'll get a vote real quick.
We have a date certain of that, or is it at,
No date yet. They'll bring it back when they're ready.
so we'll republish? Councilmember Bagby?
Aye.
Councilmember Morgenstern?
Aye.
Councilmember Woolter?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wheeler?
Aye.
Mayor Lance?
Aye. Passes 5-0. Lariva, I don't know where your lot is. I'd like to have an idea. Maybe you can let my clerk know so I can look at the address and see the lot. I mean, I'm
Okay.
curious, and I like what you said.
It's on
so.
your zoning map.
I know, but I know there's a lot of houses on my zoning map, so.
Okay, I will let him know, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you
I
for
really
your time.
appreciate it.
Okay, perfect. I just don't know. But I don't want her to say it out loud. No, great. All right, we'll move into new business. I-1, adjusting maximum allowable solid waste, compost, and recycling rates under the solid waste collection franchise agreement between the city and Recology Sonoma Marin Incorporated.
Thank you, Mayor. And just real quickly, I want to ask our city clerk to promote some attendees, Mike, on Zoom, including Mr. Alex Soulard from R3 Consulting Group, Jesse Gutierrez from Recology, and Libby Costello. So if we can add those to Zoom, that would be great. Thank you, Mike, for doing that. And with that, I'll commence the agenda report. And we also have staff from Recology here tonight. A little bit of background. Solid waste collection is governed by our Cloverdale Municipal Code, specifically Section 8.12. Under the city's solid waste regulations, we entered into a franchise agreement with Recology. Well, technically, we entered into originally a franchise agreement with Redwood Empire Disposal. They subsequently transferred the franchise agreement to Recology. Recology is what we refer to as our franchised solid waste hauler. And they're the only entity that's permitted to provide solid waste services within the city, and that solid waste services include disposal of solid waste or trash, green waste collection, which also includes food waste and compostables, and last but not least, our blue bin, which includes all of our recyclable material. Under that franchise agreement, it does provide for an annual rate adjustment. Normally, we ask council to consider and ratify that rate adjustment if it meets with the criteria that is set forth in the franchise agreement. In the agreement, there really are 5 components that make up what we refer to as the refuse rate index, and we look at that refuse rate index as the mechanism to adjust solid waste rates. There are 5 components to what I'll call the RRI, or refuse rate index. That includes the collection component. The collection component is the cost of actually picking up the solid waste, recyclables, and green waste from our residential and commercial properties within the city. There's a number of factors that make up that collection component. As provided for in the agenda report, there are 5 separate indices that ultimately comprise just that collection component. As you can imagine, the main component of collecting solid waste is the staffing that's necessary to drive the equipment, and then that brings forward the equipment and the fuel associated with that. So we look at all those particular indices in terms of their adjustments in the cost of those elements to calculate the collection element, and that's just one of the 5. The second component is what's referred to as the disposal component, and that's the component that when Recology delivers that waste to the landfill, which is managed separately and independently by Republic, charges Recology what's called a disposal fee. In the solid waste industry, we call it the tip fee. And it's a per ton fee that applies to the disposal of that solid waste for ultimately processing in the central landfill. Every year in April, the county and Republic adjust that fee, and as you can imagine, that fee pretty much only goes up because the cost of providing those disposal services go up. So that's the second factor that's comprised of the refuse rate index. In addition to that, there's really 3 other components that includes the cost of picking up and processing our compostable or green waste materials, which are ultimately diverted from the landfill and converted into compost. The other element includes a franchise fee. That's a fee that is included in the franchise agreement that we charge Recology to be our sole franchisee. It's intended to cover the staff's time associated with managing and monitoring the franchise agreement, as well as some impacts of that solid waste services on city streets. In addition, there is a small retroactive component. As I mentioned, the county imposes this tip fee upon recology in April, but it's not till September that rates are adjusted. And so there's a kind of a calculation just to cover that period of retroactivity between April 1st and August 31st. I do want to mention that included in this rate adjustment is the third adjustment in a four-year phase-in of what was brought to council for a special rate adjustment to comply with Senate Bill 1383. Part of the rate adjustment that's before you tonight is an additional 5% that was phased in over time, and that was subject to discussion by council and ultimately approved as a four-step phase-in or a four-year phase-in in three steps. So in summary, the phased rate increase includes the 5% for the SB 1383 and a refuse rate index of 3.25%. It totals with some of those other adjustments, including the retroactive average rate increase of about 9.5%, depending on the subscription size for your bin. For residential units, there are four options: 20-gallon, 32-gallon, 64-gallon, and 96-gallon. And part of the rate the solid waste adjustment factors. And then there's also adjustments to the commercial rates depending on the particular bin size. So staff brings this forward. This would be a ratification of the rate increases as proposed. As we normally do, we hire an independent consultant, R3, to evaluate the rate application, to review those RRI factors that comprise the collection component, to make sure that all the math and those indices as provided are accurate. And that's a memo to that effect is included in your packet. They found that the rate adjustment request that was submitted by Recology is accurate, and as such, the staff is recommending that council approve the resolution that would ratify the rate adjustment, which would become effective September 1st. With that, I just want to mention that we do have staff here from R3, including Alex and Libby, who reviewed the Recology's rate application, and we have Recology here if you would like to, if you have any questions about the factors that they put in their rate review requests. So with that, Mayor, I'll turn it back to council.
Thank you, David. Who wants to start? Anyone with questions or comments? Okay. Well, you're the only one with a comment at this point. Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to make a public comment on this? Seeing none, we'll bring it back. It's all you.
Revolves around, thank you. Sorry about that. My question revolves around the monitoring of the solid waste that goes in our green container. And I think there are some people canvassing the neighborhoods in the evenings or early morning to check in the trash cans to see exactly what's in there. Could we chat about that for a minute, if in fact that's happening, and what exactly are we looking for?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Walter. I think that's a great question, and that there are staff from Recology here, and certainly I think their perspective may be valuable. There is so currently we are being audited by Cal Recycle. It's along with all the other municipalities in Sonoma County. We were the first county chosen to be audited under the guise of SB 1383. And one element of that is to ensure that we are, a major element of that is to ensure that we are in compliance with the state's regulations. And one of the things that they check is to ensure that the materials that are getting placed in that green bin are ultimately able to be converted to compost. If the material that's being placed in there is otherwise solid waste or recyclable, it can result in that bin being unserviced or non-serviced. And so often I'm not exactly sure on the methods, whether there's a statistical methodology, but that there is a kind of an audit, if you will, of a look-see, if you will, into those containers to ensure that the materials that are being placed in there are reflective of the proper materials that should be placed in that bin. So recyclables in the blue bin, solid waste in the gray bin, and green waste in their food. So there is an active effort to monitor those containers. It could be one of three different entities. It could be the state, Cal Recycle. It could be Recology, who is also required under our ordinance to comply with the SB 1383 requirements. And then last but not least, staff from Zero Waste, who are also part of their directive is to seek compliance. So.
And I thank you, David. And I know right now they're being issued "Oops" stickers on their cans, but I'm just wondering down the road what type of fine or penalty can the consumer be looking at here in Cloverdale?
Yeah, I think I did check with Recology to determine whether they have imposed fines upon residents, and the answer that I received was that they do. I don't have a definitive dollar amount of those fines might be.
I think it's important that we disclose that to our Cloverdalian customers. I think they need to know that if they're not recycling properly, they are going to get fined. And I'd like to know the size of the fines and how it's actually paid, because if I'm not mistaken, eventually it trickles back to the city if it goes unpaid. So I'd like to hear from our guests this evening if they can comment on that. Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Yes, sir. They're coming forward to answer your question. Go ahead.
Allowed? Yeah, okay, great. Hi, I'm Logan Harvey, Senior General Manager for Recology Cinema Marin. Pleasure to be here with you tonight. Do I need to move the mic up, or
You're good.
Everybody hear me? We're good? Okay, cool. Yeah, so as your city manager mentioned, the audits that we do are predominantly for 1383 auditing. We're looking not only for contamination, but we're also trying to check and report to the city on how many residents are using the green bin for food waste. One of the main goals of 1383 was to get people to put compostable food waste into the green bin. And so that's a big piece of what we're looking for. As far as fines, I'm not aware of any individual residences or single-family homes that we have fined for that. We have fined commercial properties, and typically we fine after we've seen contamination, we do education, and then it doesn't work, and then we start to fine for that. We look at both the recycling and the composting. The fine we just looked up is $49. But we have not applied that fine, to my knowledge, to any residences inside the city of Cloverdale.
So the fine is the same for commercial and residents?
I believe so.
Okay.
Please come forward so you're part of the record.
Nikki Burke, Regional Rate Manager with Recology. So if it's a commercial bin, so one of the metal containers, it's a $49 charge plus about $100 per cubic yard of their bin. So if you had a 2-yard bin, you'd be charged about $250. So there is a higher penalty to your commercial customers, which is somewhat necessary because in bad situations, we can see people utilizing those bins as an extra trash can. So what we don't want is that happening because it affects the wider variety of the material we're collecting.
And at any point, is the city liable for those fines if they're not paid by the consumer or the commercial
No.
business?
No, the liability's all, I mean, if we're not tracking contamination and the rest of that, there's potential for us to be fined, but there is no, that I'm aware of, liability for the city's concerned. And I do want to restate, anytime we're looking at a commercial or residential property, any sort of contamination piece is always paired with education. That includes coming out to the site, providing education to managers. This is where I started in the company with Recology Stone Marin, was going out to a business, providing them flyers, providing them Slim Jims, talking to their employees, training them on how to correctly split to avoid the contamination and those kinds of fines. And then just on the back end, Recology pays for disposal of contaminants that come to our materials recovery facility, our MRF, where recycling is processed. And then we're also charged by our composters when we have significant amounts of solid waste or non-compostable material in their bin. But to your question, no, I don't believe the city would be liable at any time for these fines, unless it was in a city bin, but we probably wouldn't look to charge you.
Is there a certain percentage of compliance that has to be achieved before a fine is levied? Or
We look for
noticed?
30% contamination is about our threshold before we really start to fine and pressure there.
Well, I just think it's really important that the word gets out there to the consumers and the commercial as well.
Absolutely.
I was under the impression at some point that the city would be charged if in fact the fines were not paid, but I'll look into that.
There
at a
are,
later
under
date.
1383, there's stuff around diversion that the city's there, but you've kind of passed that liability to us. It's our focus as far as I understand it. So, yeah. But it's not regarding contamination. That's about improving diversion rates and making sure that you're diverting more material from landfill into compost recycling.
Right, and I think that's the part of the zero waste portion versus the 1383, that the city is liable. And that's going to be my next question. Are you done, Councilmember Walter?
I'm done. Thank you. Thank you.
So not talking about the contamination portion, we're talking
Yes,
about, let's say, right now we have a restaurant that isn't using their compost bin enough. What is the measurable amount that they're supposed to use? And this is where it becomes a subjective thing, and where I really have had a problem for the last 6 years asking for this. Tell me how much somebody has to use it to be in compliance, because the city's liable if they don't pay and we're the ones that have to go after the customer. How do we tell them what they can use? Is it in a green can? Is it one apple? Is it 10% of the weight? What is this number that anybody can just make up at your company and say, we're going to fine you? It's not fair.
Well, it's not our company. It's state regulation and CalRecycle.
It's the person that goes and looks in that green can before it gets dumped. It's the little gnome running around in the mornings that looks in the can before they put it into the truck.
To
right?
be clear, Mayor Lands, we're not charging anybody for not composting, and we have no fines that we're able to charge anybody for not composting or not correctly diverting their material.
I believe we have one commercial customer on the hook right now.
For being charged for not
I've been
composting.
fined for something personally as a resident, so
I
don't think the information is accurate.
You're aware of a commercial customer that is
Absolutely.
being charged
If
for
I'm
not
if I'm
diverting?
wrong right now, I mean, I don't want to say the business's name, but one of our restaurants is in the middle of this actually right now.
So we've there's been customers that we've told them that they need to obtain composting.
Okay.
And there are cases where businesses are not going to comply, and we'll give them a bin and they use it as they will. We try to get them to divert as much as possible, as much as they're willing. Compost is a free service. It's offered in congruence with your garbage and recycling. But I'm not aware that we've fined anybody unless the city is, and I can look into that. If you have the name of the restaurant, you can send it to me privately.
Okay.
I can provide my information and look into it directly. I'm not aware of the situation before tonight, but as far as I'm aware, we're not allowed to fine somebody under our contract agreement for not composting.
Which is
We're
going to
not.
be my next portion, is where in our contract says you can fine these people and take more money.
It doesn't with regards to, we have no rate for charging somebody for not composting or not recycling.
And then how about with the residential, you said $49
The
for different
contamination.
things. So let's say let's say somebody does something wrong, they put something wrong in the recycle bin,
Yeah.
they get a fine. Is that included in the contract that we have with you guys to be able to do that? And then if so, that seems to be adding to your amount of money that you're making, and now we're also adding for the RRI.
Sure, but that's a de minimis amount of money that we make off of contamination fees. We provide these records to the city. We don't charge people. We haven't charged any residents, as far as I'm aware, for contamination, and it's minimal on commercial. Again, we always strive to do contamination. We make our money off of the service that we provide, not by chalking up ancillary fees.
I think that we really need to pay attention as a city to what they're doing with the fines, because it was nothing that was discussed when the contract was written, in my opinion. And with zero waste, we need to have a measurable amount, because it is not fair to the residents and it's not fair to the commercial businesses. So I think that's something that we need to look into as a city to demand in the contract. That's just my opinion. Anyone else with any comments?
I think we kind of lost sight of the real issue here, and the real purpose of the state legislation is that we're in a crisis mode where our landfills are concerned. In Sonoma County, we have how many years left, Logan? 20 years left in our local landfill. And when that landfill is full, our solid waste disposal rates are going to go sky high, because we will have to haul them out of the county. So, I mean, I'm all for absolutely making this as fair and easy for businesses, but they have got to get with the program. The idea that you can continue to send food to our landfill that's going to produce methane and is going to take up space for the essential disposal that has to happen in this county, it's just foolhardy. We have limited resources, and we have to live within our means. We have a budget, and it's the square footage that's available at that landfill. And we have to learn to live within that budget. So as it absolutely needs to be fair, and we absolutely need to make sure that our businesses are educated, but when we don't take action on this, all of the ratepayers are going to be paying higher fees much sooner. So I think that we actually have this discussion absolutely backwards. We have to do everything we have as a council and as a city and as residents to make sure that we preserve our resources, and we have to start thinking of our the waste that we haul, that we can do it within Sonoma County. That's a precious resource we absolutely have to preserve for the future. And so I really appreciate the diversion work and the education that Recology is doing, and the fact that Sonoma County is really leading on this issue, and we need to continue to do it. And as local leaders, we need to be supporting our local businesses, but also educating people that this is a slow motion disaster if we don't get our waste diversion under control, and it's going to result in higher rates for everybody. So I want to thank Recology for being a leader on this. I want to thank RM3 for all the work that they have done on this. And we as a city need to do better.
Well, thank you for those comments, Councilmember Bagby. But, I work for the Cloverdalians that live in Cloverdale, not for the big corporations that are coming in. And my comments are not of need of a lecture on what's going to happen with the methane gas and all. I get it. What I don't like is our citizens being charged for things when it's not clear to them why they're being charged. We get oopses in the buckets. There's no letters. I'm not sure if it's even mentioned on the Recology bill that we get that you could be fined if you're not using the proper container. So I get where you're coming. The need for us to do it, I agree. But I work for the citizens of Cloverdale, and I want to make sure they know that they're getting fined if they don't comply. So, thank you.
Yes, Mayor, go ahead.
And I want to circle back from all this to the very beginning. And what my issue is, and the reason I bring this up, is the folks that are going around and monitoring the cans at 5:30 in the morning and no safety vests on. I got 2 people going through my neighborhood's cans, so absolutely I called them out. I'm wondering if there's any door hangers, emails, and I understand may defeat the purpose, like, hey, we're going to be checking your can. Of course, everything's going to be perfect after that. But I'm just wondering if there's any, hey, we're going to be doing this neighborhood, this town, whatever. just for that shock, because that turned into a lot of residents coming up and saying, who in the blankety blank was that going through my stuff? And it fired them up a little bit. So
Yeah.
back to working for Cloverdale, I want to have those answers for them saying, hey, here's what's going on.
I appreciate those comments, Vice Mayor. And just to kind of take a step back, these audits are part of the requirements of 1383 that we do a certain amount of residential audits. So we are merely complying with the state law by providing them. The intent is not to come and charge your citizens and your residents. And again, I do not believe that we've charged anybody in Cloverdale. The OOPS tags that people receive are meant as an education piece to point out, hey, these things were in the wrong bin so that they can put them in the right bin, and to protect the contamination from happening. Certainly, I took over the role as the general manager here in October. And prior to that, I was working in Seattle. Prior to that, I was at RSM right as the 1383 was rolling out. I've been with Recology for 5 years. So I'm not aware of exactly how that communication rolled out. We do mailers to every single resident on annual, biannual basis. We can make sure we're starting our fall mailer now, so I can speak to them to see if we can fit in that messaging around our auditing for the fall mailer.
Just maybe like a heads up, and it takes the shock away from it.
It may be a little late to get that message in. If not, I'll get it in the next one. We can probably do some bill inserts, or we can do a blanketed kind of like Facebook update. So we can try to do some more advertisements just to let people know what it is, what's happening. So I'll take that back to our team. Certainly, we don't want people to be concerned or have somebody rummaging through their garbage and they don't know what's going on, right? And so we want to respect your residents as well as you do, for sure. And we typically adorn people in a shirt that has some high-vis components, but we can make it more highly visible, certainly, and try to come a little later during the day if that's something you'd appreciate.
Yeah, and I think that the two folks that were doing it, they must, it was early in the morning. I don't know if they forgot to put on a vest, but it was just two regular dressed people.
Okay.
So
Fair enough.
that was one of the big concerns right there.
Yeah.
And if you guys are sending out mailers, it's up to us then to look at it and say, hey, in my bill, this is what's going to be happening. I get it.
And I'm not shocked to, we find those in the recycling on a regular basis. So,
Yes.
not everybody kind of, you get it from the garbage company and it goes hopefully in the recycling bin.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely, sir. Yeah.
All right, I'll open up
Mayor,
the public. Oh,
Just
go ahead.
to add one comment, granted, this is the future franchise agreement that we've been working on, but it does lay out a process of notices before fines and also defines contamination as 10% by weight or volume. So there are some metrics in
For the contamination portion.
in our agreements.
Perfect. Thank you. Is there anyone in the public who'd like to make a comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back. Anyone else up here? Anyone want to make a motion by title only? There he goes. Thank you.
Motion title only, adopt resolution entitled Resolution of the City Council of the City of Cloverdale approving the maximum allowed solid waste composting and recycling rates under the solid waste collection franchise agreement between the city and Recology, Sonoma Marin, Inc., and repealing the rate schedule adopted under resolution number 070-2023.
Second.
Michael, are you ready?
Mayor. Councilmember Bagby.
Aye.
Councilmember Morgenstern.
Aye.
Councilmember Wolter. Aye. Vice Mayor Wheeler.
Aye.
Mayor Lands.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Thank you.
I'll leave my card with your city clerk just so in case anybody has follow-up questions, you can reach out.
Thank you. If it's okay with council, I'd like to take I3 out of order. Is that all right? Anyone? All right. I3, a resolution affirming support of farms, ranches, and agriculture operations and businesses in Cloverdale and Sonoma County and opposing Measure J. Sorry, David. Probably threw you off a little bit.
Mayor, members of the council, tonight before you is a resolution that is in support of our local area farms and ranches. As you know, we in Sonoma County have a real history based on farming, in particular in the southern portion of Sonoma County. There's a number of dairy operations that has largely been comprised of family enterprises that have historically raised cattle for number of local products, including milk and cheese, and my favorite, coffee creamer. But what we see tonight is a request to adopt a resolution in opposition to a measure that has been placed on the ballot for voters' consideration. This is Measure J. What Measure J is establishment of a prohibition on what's referred to as concentrated animal feeding operations, or CAFOs in short. The county council's office has offered a analysis and summary of the measure, and I know I don't want to bore you too much, but I think it's important just to kind of outline some of the key concepts, what this measure would do. Basically, the measure would prohibit, it will not only prohibit future CAFOs, it would phase out existing CAFOs based on a 3-year phase out. It would apply to all of those animal feeding operations in the unincorporated area. Just to be clear, there's no known CAFOs within the city of Cloverdale, though as identified in the report that's included in your packet, there are both large and medium CAFOs within District 4, the current supervisorial district that we sit in. So what this would in effect do is phase out a number of our, particularly our large dairy operations, as well as some of our chicken operations, with a significant impact to a number of historic families that have conducted these operations, particularly in southern Sonoma County, but also in the District 4. The ordinance significantly restricts CAFOs, and there was an economic analysis that identified what the economic impact would be to Sonoma County if this measure does get passed by the voters. It does identify that the economic impact is in the millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. There's kind of an uncalculated impact relative to both employment and income. That's just a direct economic impact to Sonoma. So what we've put before you tonight with a whole lot of data, and happy to delve in more detail the measure itself, but is a resolution that would take a legislative position on the measure. Specifically, would articulate that this council is opposed to Measure J as it's currently written. And so with that, I'll pause, Mayor, and if there's any questions about the measure, about what the resolution would state in terms of your legislative opinion, I'm happy to address those.
Thank you, David. I'll go around the table.
I'd like to recommend the resolution by title only.
Okay, any comments, questions? Anyone? Anyone in the audience that want to make any comments?
Yeah, the only comment I want to make is
If you would like, please.
I want to thank the people who brought Measure J to our attention for bringing all of us together in Sonoma County around this issue. This is something that has united farmers, ranchers, environmentalists, schools, unions, you name it. We're proud of our food systems, and we're proud of our foodways and our traditions. We're proud of the stewardship that our ranchers and farmers engage in. We're proud of our restaurants. We're proud of Oliver's. We're proud of Dahlia and Sage. We're proud of Shelton's. We're proud of even our Whole Foods market, when we have to do that, even though they're not hyper-local. So, and we're proud of our ranchers and our farmers. And so it's this measure has really brought together some unusual bedfellows in Sonoma County and reminded us that we really have more in common with each other than we have differences. So I'm very pleased to offer this resolution.
Please go ahead. Please, sir.
My name is Daniel Charles. I'm a member of the Sonoma County Farm Bureau, and I just wanted to give a resounding thank you for bringing this issue to your attention. And all the things I was going to say, you covered, so thank you for doing that. No, all good, but it is so extremely important to us farmers that have been here generations that we come together as a community and a county to kind of squash something like this that really threatens the way we've lived and hope to live into the future. So thank you for bringing this to your board, and look forward to see what you would come up with as a resolution. Thanks.
Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. I'll just say a couple things because I'm not going to sit here and drag this out. I was lucky enough to go on a tour to all these dairy farms, and it is amazing the jobs that they do. It is amazing how happy the animals are. I've never seen them line up and back up and want to be milked, and the things that go on. I had no idea. It's amazing how, the job that they do, and I'm proud to say I'm from Sonoma County. They supply over 50% of the organic dairy products in California, and I think Sonoma County was built on their backs for multiple generations, and I want to keep it here forever. So that's all I'm going to say. We've got a motion and a second. Did you want to say something before we go to the vote?
Yes, I want to say something. I think our ranchers and our farmers do not have an easy job. I mean, it's, they have to depend on the weather. They have to depend on, their animals getting sick, all kinds of things. So the more we can support them, I think the better for everybody because, not everybody eats meat or dairy, but for the people that do, our ranchers and farmers are really important, and our farmers are important for vegetarians because they grow vegetables as well. So I think it's very important to support our agriculture.
Thank you. And if anyone needs signs, I might know someone that has a couple. All right, roll call vote, please.
First, unfortunately, I do need it to be read out by title only for the record.
Oh, I'm happy to do that. Thank you. Bring up the resolution again. Resolution of the City Council of the City of Cloverdale affirming support of farms, ranches, and agricultural operations and businesses in Cloverdale and Sonoma County and opposing Measure J on the November 2024 ballot.
Thank you, Councilmember Bagby.
Aye.
And we'll start the vote with that. Councilmember Bagby?
Aye.
Councilmember Morgenstern?
Aye.
Councilmember Wolter? Vice Mayor Wheeler?
Aye.
Mayor Lance?
Aye. Passes 5-0. Thank you all. And thank you for being here.
Wanted to note, too, that there's a member of the public online, but we are not taking virtual comments at this time. You have to do it in person. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for being here. We'll go back to I2, designation of the City of Cloverdale's voting delegate and potential alternate delegate for the 2024 League of California Cities annual conference.
Mayor, members of the council, we bring this forward annually in advance of the League of California Cities annual conference and expo this year. The annual conference is scheduled for October 16th through 18th. And included in your packet is a documentation that we're required to submit to the league in advance of the expo, designating the voting delegates to be able to vote at the league meeting on various proposals that are brought forward. We understand there are two council members that are planning to attend, including Mayor and Councilmember Bagby. So I'd recommend that normally you appoint the mayor as the voting delegate and also appoint an alternate in the case that you can't make it. So with that, I would recommend you appoint the mayor and Councilmember Bagby as your voting delegates. But it's up to council on how you would like to entertain that recommendation. So Mike, anything else you want to add as the city clerk?
No, thank you, David.
Nope. All right, with that, anyone want to make a recommendation? Go ahead.
Do I have to read it?
No.
No. Well, then I'd like to make a recommendation that we appoint the mayor, Todd Lance, to be the voting delegate, and Councilmember Bagby to be the alternate delegate. When I first saw this, quite frankly, I was a little concerned that Councilmember Bagby was going to be going, when in fact she did not seek re-election. And over the last couple of years, communications have been nil. But when I look back in the past, we've done that. We've done that for Councilmember Paula, and Councilmember Bagby always gives us good representation. So I'm going to go ahead and support this, and I hope my fellow council members agree.
Do we have a second?
We have a second.
There we go. Is there anyone in the public that'd like to make a comment? Seeing none, is there anyone up here that'd like to make a comment? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Councilmember Bagby?
Aye.
Councilmember Morgenstern?
I'm going to abstain from voting.
Councilmember Wolter?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wheeler?
Aye.
Mayor Lands?
Aye. Passes 4-0 with one abstention. I-4, resolution of the City Council of the City of Cloverdale approving a memorandum of understanding with the Cloverdale Dispatch Association and authorizing the city manager to execute the MOU on behalf of the city.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Included in your packet is a restated memorandum of understanding with the Cloverdale Dispatch Association. The request tonight is for council to adopt the resolution that would approve the MOU with dispatch. A little bit of background, the current MOU expired June 30th, excuse me, of last year, of this year, gosh. For the last 6 months, we've been in labor negotiations with the Cloverdale Dispatch Association. After significant discussion, our representatives and their representatives have come together in good faith on a proposed tentative agreement for a successor MOU, which would cover a 2-year term effective July 1 of this year to June 30th of 2024, so a 2-year term. Included in that MOU are some cost of living adjustments. For the first year, that cost of living adjustment would be 4%. For the second year, it would be a 3% cost of living adjustment. I do want to note that there was, a lot of consideration about the financial impacts of this proposed MOU on the city's budget. The part of the conversation and discussion with the dispatch was a modification of the medical plan that was provided to employees, which will, in the long term, reduce costs to the city and help offset some of the costs associated with the COLAs that are included in your packet. As part of that, there also is an incentive by establishing an employee-owned HRA account, which would cover and address some of the increase in deductibles that would apply to those employees within dispatch. There was some other elements included, which are outlined in your packet, many of which are intended to be cleanup of the language. One notable action would be to add the police records technician to the list of covered employees. And with that, I'd just like to make the recommendation that council approve the resolution in your packet that would approve the MOU. I do want to note that this change will have a fiscal impact on our deficit. The deficit is anticipated to increase by about $27,000 $920 in the current fiscal year. And for the second year, it will be necessary to conduct a more detailed analysis at the end of this current fiscal year. As such, staff will bring back a budget adjustment to cover the costs, assuming council approves the MOU this evening.
Thank you, David. Appreciate that. Council, questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll open up to public. Anyone want to make any comments regarding this MOU? Seeing none, bring it back. Anyone want to read a resolution? The title only.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Oh, no, you have to read it.
Adopt a resolution entitled Resolution of the City Council of the City of Cloverdale approving a memorandum of understanding with the Cloverdale Dispatch Association and authorizing the city manager to execute the memorandum of understanding on behalf of the city.
Councilmember Bagby had a second. Roll call when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Bagby?
Aye.
Councilmember Morgenstern?
Aye.
Councilmember Wolter? Aye. Vice Mayor Wheeler?
Aye.
Mayor Lands?
Aye. Passes 5-0. Thank you, everyone, on that. Thank you for all your hard work, David and Kevin and Shannon, if you're listening. Okay, subcommittee reports. Anyone want to make any verbal reports? All the agendas and minutes are online. Any council member reports?
I just wanted to make a quick comment about the Sonoma County Mayors and Council Members Legislative Committee. We had a presentation from the Our Kids and Our Future campaign, which is going to be on the November ballot. I just was reminded tonight, listening to the proclamation that we heard about the fiscal disparities between what women are paid compared to what men are paid. And then to add to that, there's just a crisis mode lack of childcare, especially after COVID. So I know that the campaign would be happy to come up and do a presentation, or if the mayor would be interested in either getting a presentation or just going ahead with a letter of support for this item. I think it's something that we should talk about. We know from previous experience there is an absolute lack of adequate childcare and support for early childhood development in Cloverdale and throughout the entire county. So like if we could consider that at a future meeting.
And to just comment really quickly on that, I've had a meeting where Tony Crabb presented with this. It's Measure I, and I'm also on board, so that would add 2. So I would leave it to David, to the city manager, to make that decision to whether it needs to be a future agenda item, or if you think that we have the support through the council to just bring the letter. Okay. Let's see here. Do you have anything that you would like to comment or?
The California Board, on that
Yes.
subject.
No, on whatever.
Okay. What I want to comment about is, and see if the council maybe wanted to write a letter of support on this, or if individuals on the council wanted to sign the petition. The California Board of Pharmacy has proposed regulations on pharmacy compounding that would restrict access to legal Category 1 sterile compounds, such as glutathione and B12. And I think it's their stance, I think, is really dangerous. They're going to vote on this at a September 12th, 2024 meeting, because one thing, a lot of patients use like B12 injections that their doctors order. But the most dangerous thing, I think, is a lot of firemen use glutathione, say, in IVs when they need to detox from smoke. And that would take away their option to be able to do this. And I think it should be between the firemen and their doctors rather than the Board of Pharmacy telling them what to do. So anyway, if this council wanted to get behind this and send a letter of support to our representatives, I think it would be great.
Does anyone want to make any comments?
Yeah. I don't think that's really something that is within our jurisdiction. I certainly appreciate it as an informational item, and it's something that I would consider doing personally. But I don't think it's something that that the council necessarily, it's appropriate for us to weigh in on.
And I would agree, and I would recommend everyone sign the petition. And if you could have, I know you've sent it to myself, I can send it out to the rest of the council. And that way they can have that option to sign that petition if you would like, or city manager can do that as well. And we support you and agree. The fact that it's at petition level versus something we're voting on right now is probably what makes that difference. And thank you for bringing it to our attention, because it's something that we all use. So thank you. I like that. Anything else? Okay. We'll move on to, there's no legislative reports. City manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick update to elaborate on the public comment earlier. We've had, I called it city emblem. Really, the way we want to characterize it is the city seal, which is reflected on the flag that sits in here at CPAC. We are finalizing the design of the seal to get placed on the flag. Actually, Mr. Frankston, who is here tonight, has agreed to actually purchase the flag for flying on the flagpole. So apologize, it's taken us a little time to. We tried to find the graphic. It was lost in the historical archives somewhere, or maybe never existed in digital format. But our local graphic artist has prepared, I think, what's going to be a very beautiful graphic that will serve as our city seal, and we hope we can get that flag prepared post haste and get that flown on our commemorative flagpole.
Thank you so much.
We can get two, absolutely. Yeah. It makes sense to have a backup.
Absolutely. All right. No, you're great. You're great. Okay, city attorney report. Thank you. Any direction on future agenda items? Seeing none, thank you. Well, with that, meeting adjourned 7:33.